Hello class, this is Dr. Long again. I hope this video finds you well. I'm shooting this short video to give you some further insight on your term paper assignment, which is an important assignment in our class. Now, I would highly urge you to see the term paper guideline that I have on D2L, as it gives you very extensive instructions on the term paper, as well as the nuts and bolts of how to put it together, how to turn it in, and certainly the due date as well. Now, this video I'm shooting is to give you some further instructions and just some overall tips on how to put your term paper together. Now, your term paper is based on a short book, the one book that you have for this semester. The book is Zhenru Liu's The Silk Roads. And just to let you know what it looks like, it is this book here. So you should have gotten that book at the very beginning of the semester. If you don't have it now, you really need to go ahead and order it. You should be able to find it at any online bookseller. And you can get an electronic version as well. If you have a Kindle or some other device that you like to read on, you can get it there. You do not need to do any outside research for this paper. That is the only book that you need. In fact, other research is actually forbidden for the purposes of this paper. That is to cut down on the potential of plagiarism, but it's also to make it easier for you, because reading that book is in essence kind of a one-stop shop for this paper. Everything you'll need to write the paper is there in that one book. For the book, I hope you find it really interesting that the Silk Roads were an extensive connections all across Eurasia that bound a lot of different cultures and civilizations together, both in trade and in religious interaction over many centuries. And we live in an increasingly globalized world, and so it's something for us to ponder that those sort of developments occurred prior to the modern world. I hope you find it really interesting. Now, when you begin reading it, first read the introduction. There's a short introduction that will give you a lot more insight into the Silk Roads. And you'll find that useful in writing your paper as well. And then you'll see a whole host of short primary source documents from the Silk Roads themselves, people who lived and were engaged in trade or religious activity on the Silk Roads. Read those short primary source documents, and when you see the term paper guideline, you will notice that you are required to cite at least a minimum of 4 primary source documents for your term paper. Now, I've made it easy on you in that if you look at the term paper guideline, there are 2 big options that you can write on. There are 2 big sets of interlocking questions, and you only choose one. Please only choose one. I'm not asking you to write 2 term papers. Choose one of those and write on that. But right below the question, the options, what you will see is I've listed a number of relevant short primary source documents from the book that you could use, and I'll give you the page numbers. So those are some examples you can turn to right away and read, and certainly cite when you write your term paper. You don't have to necessarily read all the primary source documents that follow the introduction, but again, you need a minimum of 4, and I would encourage you to really read more than that so that you have a good flavor of it, and you've got several at your disposal that you can use. Now, as you read both the introduction and the short primary source documents that you use for your paper, make sure that you take good notes. It's important that you do so whether you take notes in a notebook or you make notes in the margin. You'll definitely be able to use those when you go back to write the paper. It'll make it easier for you to find quotations, to find places, to cite information specific that you can use, and so forth. Now again, you'll see on the term paper guideline that there are 2 big options, 2 big paper topics that you can choose on. Again, only do one of those. I'm not asking you to do one paper. However, when you choose one of those options, those options basically are a series of interrelated, interlocking questions. And you need to go through in your paper and systematically answer all of those using specific examples. The more specific examples you can use, the better you will do. And I think that our discussion online will have given you a little bit of practice for your term paper. Certainly the discussions are much shorter, but it should at least give you at least a small sense of what I'm looking for in the term paper in terms of specific examples, and for that matter, citations. Speaking of citations, you'll need to cite your sources. You'll need need summary citations of where you got information in general from, and direct quotes using the Turabian citation style. And you should be familiar with that by now, and certainly the term paper guideline gives you extensive examples of how to use all the sources in the book. So please refer to that. When you cite your sources in your paper, you're doing more extensive work than in a discussion post. And I would encourage you, and your term paper guideline has this, to use what is called the ICE method in using direct quotes. And what this means is that you introduce a quote, and I have a number of stock phrases that you can use to introduce a quote. You cite it, and then you unpack it and explain it in your own words. And that will make the quote flow well with your paper. It'll sound better. Your own views will come out more clearly, and so forth. When you write your paper as well, I would encourage you to make sure that it's organized. You might want to make an outline even before you begin to organize your thoughts. And if you make an outline, it is more work on the front end. On the other hand, when you begin to write your paper, if you follow the outline, your paper will pretty much write itself. But that's a good idea. But irregardless, your paper will need an introduction. And in introduction, you'll introduce the topic, give some generalities, and you'll have a thesis statement introduction where you make a specific argument about the lessons and significance of the Silk Roads based on the questions you're answering. Then, in your main body, you will go through and systematically answer the questions and give specific examples in doing so. And finally, you'll have a conclusion at the end, a concluding paragraph in which you sum things up, restate your thesis, and bring your paper to an end. Now, when you finish writing your paper, and as you write your paper, make sure that you write incomplete sentences, incomplete paragraphs, indent at the beginning of each paragraph. You need to double space as well, use correct punctuation, spelling. You need to make sure that your paper is grammatically correct. Before you turn it in, I would highly urge you to edit your paper. And probably the simplest way to do this is simply to read it aloud. And when you read it aloud, you will automatically hear awkwardly worded sentences. You will catch misspelled words, and certainly using spell check can help in that regard. If you read it aloud, correct those, you will certainly improve your term paper score. Now, I'm not going to grade your paper as stringently as an English professor would. Nonetheless, papers that are riddled with mistakes will certainly lose points. And the reason for this is that if you have a lot of grammatical errors, awkwardly worded sentences, spelling mistakes, I, or any other reader for that matter, will have a difficult time understanding what you're trying to say. And therefore, if your communication skills are poor, you will lose points accordingly. Now again, as you're writing your paper, please consult the term paper guideline. It tells you how to write it from beginning to end. It's very extensive. There's a rubric that tells you how we'll grade it at the very end as well. You can take a look at that. The term paper guideline also tells you, once you have your term paper finished, of course, where to turn it in, namely the Dropbox in D2L. It has the due date and so forth. And there's also some discussion on the syllabus of my policies with regard to late papers, plagiarism, and so forth. Well, I hope this video has given you further insight into your term paper assignment. Again, consult the term paper guideline for further details. If you have questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Please email me at my GHC account. I wish you all the best on your term paper, and I would encourage you to begin it earlier and not wait till the last minute to do it. It's not an assignment that's set up where you can do the night before. The earlier you start on that, the better you will do, and the less stressful it will be. Well, best of luck on that, and again, if you have questions, just let me know. Thanks, and bye now.